Thank you for coming today. As we begin lining up here on the stairs, I want to just let everyone know the speaking arrangement will be this. Myself, Commissioner Evans, will then have Casey Wood speak, and then Mayor Sarno from Springfield, Mayor Rivera from Lawrence, and then we'll take questions after that. And then any Boston-based questions, I'd ask you to hold them till the end till we get through the Gun Summit questions, and then we can have the Boston-based question. I know you have some questions about the shootings last night in the city, so we'll get into that in a little bit. So I want to just thank you for being here. I'm honored to have we haven't quite concluded our 4th annual summit yet, but we're in the process of hearing a couple more presentations. And I want to thank all of the law enforcement elected officials that have come from all over New England here to be with us here today. This is important and meaningful work for us as mayors, but also for many of our cities and towns in New England. On the first day of my administration, which seemed like 2 decades ago, we had a public safety meeting with families of homicides. I knew it was important to establish relationships with family members, but to make headway against gun violence, relationships are just as important as the relationships we made on that day. We have issued illegal guns. We have an issue with illegal guns here in the city of Boston, city of Springfield, city of Lawrence, and many other cities and towns. Working across borders with our colleagues is how we're going to continue to work to solve these issues. It's also essential work in light of the obstruction in Washington that seems to block all the progress. The story here in New England is different. The story here in Boston is different. In our summit so far, we've engaged 6 states, 86 different cities and towns. We've shared strategies and we've built relationships. As a result, we've partnered with researchers and safety advocates. And we've engaged responsible gun owners in many of our cities. Today we talked about our progress and what the next steps are for us. Our focus was on pilot projects that several of our cities are undertaking in partnerships with Arms with Ethics. Last year, the Boston Foundation supported the summit by funding development pilot projects in Hartford, Connecticut, Burlington, Vermont, Worcester, Massachusetts, and Boston. This project in Boston focused on engaging gun owners as partners in an effort to prevent illegal guns and unsafe use of guns. In Boston, we can announce today some new resources to help gun owners stay legal and safe. First, our website was completed last year using a whole new approach to residents' engagement. It's organized around practical topics like enrolling your kids in school, getting married, paying parking tickets. Today, we add a new page, Owning a Firearm in Boston. Our second new initiative is enhancing gun owner outreach. It's a comprehensive toolkit that engages gun owners as partners in public safety. We're also able to share it with other jurisdictions. We're certainly proud of this leading-edge work. It builds culture division. It bridges culture divisions around gun ownership in a way that we hope will have a national impact. Before I turn the microphone over to Commissioner Evans, I just want to thank all of the chiefs behind me, and some didn't come down. We're often asked at press conferences, what can we do? How can we do more? What should we do? What are we going to do? This move of having this summit is one of the most important things I think we can do. Because to my knowledge, this has not happened anywhere in the United States of America. And we're going to continue to move forward to make sure we get the guns off our street. We're going to continue to move forward to work with our partners in the northern parts of New England to make sure we help them with the flow of illegal drugs into their neighborhoods. And we're going to work to make sure that we do not have situations like we did last night, like answers that questions will be taking a little while about 2 people losing their life due to senseless gun violence. So again, I want to thank you for being here. I'd like to turn the microphone over to Commissioner Evans.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and I want to thank the fellow mayors and all my fellow police chiefs for being here all over New England. You know, today was about sharing best practices and some of the programs that we've been trying and the pros and cons, but I think we all know that there's way too many guns out there, and that was what we talked about today. How do we stem the flow of illegal guns into the city and into the fellow cities? I think ideas such as sending letters home to the gun owners, the gun locks, the gun buybacks, and the requirement of registering your guns, and then if they're stolen, reporting it. I think that program has worked well. The whole idea we talked about, the process of getting guns out of the hands of mentally unfit individuals, and the whole idea of taking their guns into custody, so they don't possess them. So there was a lot of good ideas here today shared because, like the mayor said, we're seeing way too many guns out there, not only by what happened last night, but I spoke earlier about guns are getting into the hands of younger and younger kids. Over the last 3 weeks, we got 2 14-year-olds with some high-powered guns out there. And, this, whether you're from Lowell, whether you're from Springfield, whether you're from Worcester, these aren't just problems unique to Boston. They're unique to all of us. So it's in all our best, interests to work together. We had New York give a presentation here, and it was pretty interesting to show that their major flow of guns are coming from the same areas that ours are, and that's from the I-95 pipeline, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina. So we gotta work together to stop the flow. And I want to thank Mayor Walsh and all of the fellow mayors for basically coming together to brainstorm and stop the flow, because what happened last night shouldn't be happening, but the only way we're going to stop it is to stop the flow of guns. So I just want to thank everyone, and I also want to introduce Casey Woods, who's with Arms for Ethics, who is helping all New England areas to try to put some of these best practices into place. So Casey, take the helm.
So thank you, Mayor Walsh, and thank you, Commissioner Evans, for your support and leadership on this issue. We're extremely proud to be part of the New England Regional Gun Violence Summit because it is a prime example of how local leadership can address an important issue that is affecting so many communities. At Arms with Ethics, we believe in common sense answers. We partner with local leaders on law enforcement-led projects that engage all sides on this issue, including gun owners, gun retailers, and the communities hit hardest by gun violence. Last year, Arms with Ethics was funded by the Boston Foundation to develop pilot project concepts in New England cities participating in the summit. Our task with this project was to do our part to translate the information shared and lessons learned from this regional collaboration into concrete, tangible action. Through this project, Arms with Ethics has worked with New England leaders on customized police-led projects on preventing the illegal flow and the illegal and unsafe use of guns. The projects that we have developed with our partners focus on crucial areas of concern that impact the safety of our communities. In Boston, as the mayor said, we work to develop a program to more comprehensively engage gun owners as partners in public safety. Today, we unveiled the first piece of this effort, a BPD and City of Boston digital guide for gun owners. These online resources provide information on staying legal and safe as a gun owner in Boston. In Hartford, we focused on gun theft prevention, working with the police department to engage gun owners about steps they can take to protect themselves and the community from gun theft and crimes committed with stolen guns. We continue to work with them on ongoing research about gun theft. In Worcester, we worked with the Worcester PD, the medical community, and the business community to develop resources and outreach for gun owners facing a mental health or addiction crisis in the home. And our work with Burlington led to the development of a regional project to share crime, gun, and other data that will give police departments more tools in the fight against gun trafficking. Today, we are announcing a working group of law enforcement leaders to make this ambitious goal a reality. This regional effort will be the first of its kind. We look forward to working with our partner cities and others in the region to expand these efforts to collectively address gun violence. This summit provides a powerful platform to create solutions that impact gun violence both regionally and nationally. We want to thank our law enforcement partners in Boston, Hartford, Burlington, and Worcester for their creativity and commitment as we have worked together on these projects. I also want to thank the Boston Foundation for their past and ongoing support for this initiative. And thank you again to Mayor Walsh and Commissioner Evans for your steadfast leadership in efforts to reduce gun violence. Now I'll turn it over to, are we having police partners? Or to Mayor? Yeah, perfect. Go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll go this side.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and first of all, I want to thank Mayor Walsh, Marty, and Commissioner Evans, Mayor Rivera, Danny, Casey, for continuing to convene us, one of a kind that's really not being done at all across the nation. Whether it's Mayor Walsh, myself, or Mayor Rivera, let us put forth that our #1 priorities to continue in public safety is, first of all, preventative. Our educational system, youth development, and jobs, putting our people to work. But by convening this gun summit, illegal gun summit, is extremely important as we share best practices. I'm here with my police commissioner, John Barbieri. Under his leadership and the brave and dedicated men and women in blue, we've dropped crime by 19% overall crime in the city of Springfield. Mayor Walsh, Mayor Rivera, Commissioner Evans, Commissioner Barbieri will indicate to you, many a times these crimes that are being perpetrated with guns, less than 2% of the population are repeat violent criminal offenders, gun offenders, that for some rhyme or reason from the court system, many a times are let go on low bail and/or restrictions, on monitors and/or bracelets, only to recommit again after we forge relationships in our neighborhoods. I have put across bail legislation, which is now in the state legislation, that allows us, we the people, to have an equal footing with the defendant. The defendant, that repeat violent criminal offender, has the ability, if they do not like their bail number or bail restriction, to kick it up to Superior Court and/or a single justice of the state Supreme Court. We, the people who are victimized, do not have that. This legislation is currently in the state legislature. It takes no rights away from others, but when you speak to Mayor Walsh, Commissioner Evans, Mayor Rivera, Commissioner Barbieri, a lot of times on those hot lists that you see, they are the same people perpetrating these crimes. So I would hope that we can continue to get some momentum on that. More reps are signing up. State Representative Angelo Pupolo is pushing that out of Springfield for me. But again, I commend and I thank Mayor Walsh and Commissioner Evans for getting us all together, because it's important that we share best practices. And this is a regional issue here, and we're going to work together to make sure we keep our streets safe and clean. So Mayor Walsh, Commissioner Evans, thank you so much.
You know, I think back, I know that Mayor Walsh, and thank Mayor Walsh for his leadership on this. It's not easy to try to get everybody together on one page on such an important issue, because everybody feels like they have to have an answer for their localities, but this problem has no borders. And I was elected at the same time as Mayor Walsh, so it seems like 100 years ago. But I tell you what I can remember, like it was yesterday, was the first time I had to go to a neighborhood where a person was shot, and it wasn't just that family that was affected. And there was an illegal gun, there was drugs involved. And you think about that moment, and to rebuild a neighborhood after that happens, it's a long time work, a long-term work, and it's hard because you lose immediately the trust and support of people who said, "Where were you?" And so we come together today. I think this is the type of things you do proactively. We're talking about soft tactics and hard tactics, making sure that both things are addressed. Things as simple as letters to legal homeowners, and then making sure that all the laws that are supposed to be keeping people from having their guns, who shouldn't have them, are held up too. For us, think about all the homicides that happened under our term. But if not for guns, those homicides would not have happened, and illegal guns at that. So, but if not for those illegal guns, there would have been just fights in the streets. Domestic violence situations would have been fights between lovers. But because of the illegal guns, they were homicides. So I think that talking about these together as mayors is important. And when you're sitting next to the mayor of Providence and the mayor of Springfield and you're rookie mayor from Lawrence, it helps you put it all into kind of perspective. You know, every day that we can stop one gun from being used, an illegal gun brought across the border to be used in Lawrence is a safer day for the families of Lawrence. And the more we can learn here today, we can make Lawrence a little bit safer. So I appreciate being invited here. I love the conversation we're having upstairs. Data is at the base of all of it. But at the end of the day, myself and Chief Fitzpatrick of our police department will take it back to Lawrence and put it to work. Thank you, Mayor.
Any questions on this issue? We have a lot of chiefs behind us who are from the other cities and towns as well who had pilot programs. Well, one of the things, let me just, I'll begin to address it and we'll pass it right down the list here. One of the presentations that we're in the middle of upstairs was gun shops in Vermont, Maine, New Hampshire that have very different laws as compared to Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. And we were concerned about, there's a piece of legislation, the open carry legislation, that would allow people to be able to have a gun ability to be able to purchase a gun and have a gun permit an open carry law in some other states, be able to carry it around all 50 states. So we're working collectively together on that legislation because that's something that would hurt us here in Boston and Massachusetts, and we have very different laws than, say, Vermont does. Vermont has an open carry law. You can go in and buy a gun and carry it. We don't have that ability here in Boston. You can't carry your gun down to Massachusetts today. If this law were to pass on a federal level, it changes, it gets rid of all the lines, all the borders. So we're working collectively together to well, not all of us, some of us are working together to defeat this legislation.
So can the people that is getting the guns in other states use the gun here in Massachusetts or in the cities?
No, they can't, right? No.
Currently, no. But what the mayor's saying is basically, you know, there's legislation now that if you get a right to carry a gun in a state, any state, you can take it anywhere you want. And we have some real issues with that. Just think of how difficult it would be to police a marathon or police any major event if people could come from all over the country and just carry their guns. And, you know, we have tough laws here on someone carrying, coming over the border. We don't want that to go away because there'll just be a constant flow. And so that's what we're talking about here. Reciprocity, basically we don't want the ability of people just to come from, let's say, California and be able to carry without a permit. And so that's what we were talking about.
Any other questions on topic? Yeah.
You said, so this is the 4th annual gun summit.
Yeah.
You've been in the last couple of years. Are you encouraged that you're making progress on this issue?
I mean, I think it's hard to judge what progress is. That's one of the things I think that and I'll have Casey address that a little bit more. The last summit, we talked about partnering with the Boston Foundation. The Boston Foundation made the award, partner with Arms with Ethics. They came in with a presentation on what they were going to do. Let me have Casey address some of that, and then we'll follow up with that question.
As I said before, the focus of these projects was translating all of this energy, information shared experiences into tangible action. And so we spent the last year going into these departments because our primary point of contact is police, assessing what are their needs, what do they think the opportunities are in terms of what we do, which is preventing the illegal flow or illegal or unsafe use of guns. And based on that, that's how we decided what these projects were going to be. I think you were asking about how do we keep these guns from coming in. You know, we have one project in Hartford that's about gun theft prevention. There are between 300 and 500,000 guns that are stolen in the United States every year. And all of those are instant crime guns. By definition, they fall into crime. Any of these chiefs could probably tell you how many, it's hard, the data is difficult to manage, but every week they're picking up guns that were stolen that were then used in crimes. So we're tackling specific issues that they have identified as opportunity areas for impacting gun violence in their communities. And then these projects, we're developing, testing, and then creating them as a replicable version that we can then push out through these summit cities in a way that's much more time efficient than normal replication of projects. I had 25 cities in the room today talking about the progress on that. They're getting sort of a head start on looking at how these projects might look in their communities.
And also, I think the ability that builds networking and working together. So in 2015, when President Obama came down with his executive order on background checks, you know, a lot of us in the room, there was no resistance from Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, because there was an understanding of what it did. It expanded 72 hours for a background check. In this legislation we talked about today, again, working collaboratively together on not being able to bring your gun across the border. I think that's an important aspect that we are getting positives out of it in that case. Yeah, please.
I'll tell you, I think I'm hopeful because we keep meeting and talking about it and trying to stem the tide, but it feels like one step forward, 3 steps back, because on this issue, like the opioid crisis, like immigration, like a lot of federal government problems, they're absent and they're not partnering with us. So we have to figure out a creative ways to deal with this matter. But if this was a business problem, IBM got a business problem, Microsoft has a business problem, Google, they don't scoot around. They just say, what's the problem? The problem here is people are illegally buying guns illegally and then using them illegally. How do we stop that, period? But we can't get to that because of I think what's the inaction in Washington, but also the unwillingness to tackle the big issues of the day by federal government.
Mayor, do you mind?
Yeah, sure.
Let me just say something, whether it's Mayor Walsh, myself, or Mayor Rivera. Nobody's against Second Amendment rights.
Correct.
Nobody is for gun trafficking. Nobody wants an illegal gun or a gun in a mental health person's hand. Nobody wants what we're seeing now, and this is what's coming together as we're all working together, that you see from suburban areas, you see from rural areas, that they are trading in their guns for drugs, the opioid crisis. Mayors, he or she, are people of action. We have to respond immediately. We can't pontificate on the federal level on an issue for 6 months to years on it. We have to have action. People want stuff done. So by Mayor Walsh bringing us all together here, this is working regionally so we cooperate when we see a pipeline of illegal activity moving forward. There'll be some that want to twist this effort. This is nobody's for, gun trafficking. Nobody wants guns in hands of people who have mental health issues. Nobody wants our young people to have these guns. And again, we're going to, this focus many a times is on less than 2% of the population, whether gangbangers, drug dealers, etc. And when our brave men and women in blue pick them up, that's why this bail legislation is important. They need to be held, and they need to be put away for a long time and send that message. But again, nobody is trying to infringe upon Second Amendment rights here on it. And I think Casey will speak on that. She has worked with the NRA on these certain type issues that you don't want guns in the wrong people's hands. Thank you, Mayor, very much.
Do I have to? Anyone, any other questions on this topic? All right. I guess we'll open up to other topics. If these guys, you don't have to stick around if you don't want. You can't stay here if you want.
I think they want a picture before.
Can we take a picture before we do this?
Yeah,